there's all these stories about, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites.
Number 24 is Content Farms in Macedonia.
Бидејќи ако се направи грешка, таа ќе биде кобна. Нема враќање назад.
So Europe need to remain more sexy lady in the world.
Ајде, мајката!
Господа ја чува Македонија и низините граѓани.
We'll discuss all this and more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of Vodno Mountain in Skopje, Macedonia.
And this is Cvitin Šelimanov, also in the foot of... And we're actually right underneath Vodno.
We are, yeah. Although it would have been very funny if you had said, this is Cvitin Šelimanov coming to you from the foot of the Catalina Mountains in Oro Valley, Arizona. So, wait a second.
What are they doing?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Christos se rodi, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, what are we missing?
Festivus.
Festivus. Recently,
yes,
we have a
happy Old New Year. That's
we have
this
a lot
weekend.
of issues with you people, and you're going to hear about it. We're now up for Vodici, for Epiphany.
That's next week.
Are you jumping in the Vardar?
I am not. No, I value my health, and jumping in a cold body of water.
Not very clean body of water.
Yeah, not a clean body of water, but very cold water. No, I'm not doing that. So now that's a holiday. That's a public holiday.
No, but it's sanctified then. It's
in that case, yeah. Well, I'll keep the sanctification without having to do that. So that's a public holiday.
I think so. Yeah.
Next week. Yeah, so it's Friday the 19th. We're recording this on Friday, January 12th.
12th. Yeah.
This is episode 166 of the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast. So next Friday is a holiday here. Monday's a holiday in America.
What are you doing now?
MLK.
Oh, really?
Martin Luther King Day, which I didn't even realize. So that it's a holiday. So next week is a weird week for both countries, and I mean, I think everybody should just take January off because we've got so many holidays, and next year's even going to be weirder because New Year's will fall on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I think, and then Orthodox Christmas also Tuesday, I think. And anyway, so
is it officially now known as FBI Assassination Day? Dismantle the FBI Day.
Ouch! Yeah, no, it's but it is an official holiday, so there's no mail service. Federal government doesn't work, in which case we're all safe if the federal government doesn't work.
Yeah,
but also, you know what?
At least.
Wait, that's Monday. Monday's the Iowa caucuses, I think.
We're that close.
Yes. Yeah, they just had the final debate. So Chris Christie dropped out.
Yeah.
This is the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast, and we will get back to Macedonia in a moment. You can fast forward if you don't want to hear this stuff about because I just thought of this. So Iowa is first, is Monday, and then 8 days later is New Hampshire.
Okay.
And unless something major happens, Donald Trump is going to be the nominee for the Republicans, and Joe Biden will be the nominee for the Democrats.
And then is when they will arrest him and sentence him. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're biding their time for timing all of this, or at least having him kicked out of an important purple state race like they did in what was it, Colorado?
It's Colorado and Maine. The state Secretary of State, and I think the courts there in those states ruled that he cannot be on the ballot. But the U.S. Supreme Court will hear the case on February 8, and I guarantee you he will be back on the ballot. So I don't think that's an issue.
It's no problem. He only loses one vote in Maine, right? That Maine splits the votes?
I believe so. But even so, he'll still be on the ballot.
Colorado he would probably lose, but he will be reinstated in these races.
Yeah, and it'll further prevent any other secretaries of state from kicking him off the ballot because it'll be from the Supreme Court. The issue is, and here's the constitutional crisis that the United States is going to face, one of many, I think, and that he has 119 indictments against him. It just takes one of those to be convicted on, in which case then he's quote unquote a convicted felon. And then the question becomes, can a convicted felon run for president of the United States? And then secretaries of state will be kicking him off the ballots based on that. And then nobody knows what the
reason. So
the different reason will be that he's a convicted felon.
Yeah.
What Colorado and Maine have done is based on the based on the idea. It's a unique legal theory that he was involved in insurrection, even though he hasn't been convicted of insurrection. So That's one constitutional crisis. But I think, but let's do this. Let's dial it back a little bit. And those elections are in November for the American president and many other elections. But before that, we have Macedonian elections. Why don't we kind of, because I've been talking to people since I've been here, May 8?
Yeah, and then 2 weeks before that is the first round of the presidential elections.
Right, okay. And right now, where do we stand?
So, obviously there is a huge divide, a huge gap in the polling between VMRO and SDSM. VMRO is trouncing SDSM by 2-1, some polls even 3-1 margin in their own voters, mostly Macedonian voters. And this is why obviously SDSM is so desperate to get the Albanian vote, and not just as a post fact, like SDSM runs independently, VMRO independently, the Albanian parties run independently, and then SDSM tries to get the Albanians to support them, and even though they will lose the election, to form a coalition with them and not with the presumed winner VMRO. This is not good enough anymore. The margin is so big. So SDSM now says, no, can we have a pre-election coalition with an Albanian party and not a small one like BESA, like they had before? No, now they want a pre-election coalition with a major Albanian party, DUI, possibly the Alliance of Albanians, which is largely fused with DUI now. And that is, they hope, is their chance to drag VMRO to an even result, especially, I mean, they will lose some votes, both SDSM people who are not happy to vote for an Albanian and Albanians who are not happy to vote for SDSM. But they're hoping that with a lot of different shenanigans of the types we discussed in the US. So last time we had the COVID, we were voting in COVID circumstances. Something will definitely happen this time. They will try to influence the votes. Last time we had power outage in the State Electoral Commission on the eve of the vote.
Right. Yeah.
It was a lot of curious things happening. So they hope that with this, we discussed in the previous episode how SDSM is courting nationalist, pro-Russian, outspoken pro-Macedonian parties like Palevski's group, hoping that they will steal votes from VMRO. Two of them will likely enter the parliament. Both of them have come from the left. One is literally a splinter from SDSM. That's Maxim Dimitrievski's group in Kumanovo.
Right.
Because they're concentrated in one region, they will likely have 2 members of parliament there. And then maybe, if they have a good candidate elsewhere, piggybacking on the SDSM connections, maybe have some help from Branko Crvenkovski, the old leader of SDSM. They may have like 4 or 5 seats in parliament. The other is Levica, who was with SDSM in the Colored Revolution, has since tried to play a role of a nationalist, populist, left-wing party, which takes more votes from VMRO, obviously, because they're attacking VMRO on the national issues, like they're more VMRO than VMRO. There is a chance, there's an announcement from the Skopje mayor, Daniela Arsovska, that she will form a party together with the mayor of Karpoš, Stevče Kimovski. They're implying that they're supported by Nikola Gruevski, so they're like the third party that will run in the elections, all trying to take votes from VMRO. And this is how SDSM hopes that the result will be even. The very comical and very interesting development from all this is that SDSM is so desperate for DUI votes. They see no evil in DUI. They excuse everything DUI does. DUI is extremely empowered over this. They hold huge, very important ministries like finance, foreign policy, deputy prime minister. They will now have the prime minister in a matter of weeks, while keeping their deputy prime minister, who is there to balance out Macedonians and Albanians. So it's going to be a huge coup for DUI to literally run the government. And they have no brakes. They are uncontrollable. The prime minister accuses them after every crazy thing they do, and we're having a bunch of interesting scandals over this, including now the latest one with the air traffic control guys.
Yes. Yes, I flew in the other week, and of course I think that happened the day after I flew in. I
think you were safe.
And it was this kind of, what in the hell is going on here? I mean, we're literally playing with people's lives, and then the perpetrators of the crime were not placed under arrest. I think as of today they have been placed under house arrest.
House arrest for several of them. I don't think the big guy was put under, the main attacker was.
Right. And this all has to do with patronage jobs and lack of qualifications for the air traffic controllers, which I know an adjacent issue I've seen on the Twitters, is I'm still going to call it, this whole idea of DIE, which I call it, diversity, inclusion, and what's the E?
I don't know, honestly.
I forgot what E is.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Equity, that's right. Diversity, inclusion, and equity. It's got to be DIE for me.
It's DIE. No, it's DIE. In this case,
Jordan Peterson always does that. It's DIE. Anyway, that in the major U.S. airlines, and that a lot of people are saying, one of these birds is going to fall from the sky because the hires were based on diversity, inclusion, and equity as opposed to bloody competence. And you got a similar thing here with the air traffic controllers in Macedonia, and DUI is insisting that its own people be hired, even though they lack any qualifications whatsoever. And, I hope that if it takes the internationals to get involved, which I hate seeing them do that, but if that's what it takes, then so be it. Otherwise, people are literally going to die.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one case where the internationals are getting involved because this is a key service that they're using a lot, obviously much more than I am.
They fly in and out every single day.
So, and they're happy to allow DUI to take over other institutions and lord over, the merit hires and increase the number of Albanians. I mean, I live next door to several institutions, and you can see how, especially types of institutions that are constantly given to a different Albanian party, as SDSM has to bring in more and more Albanian parties to prop up the government, and whenever they give these two institutions to another Albanian party, we see a new round of people hired, but usually it's like guards, like security jobs, not like the actual white-collar office jobs which require qualifications. And this is very out in the street, and they're always out there, very loud, very... and then you can hear, the Macedonians working there tell you, like, this is becoming unbearable. With we keep the corruption, the incompetence, we keep getting shuffled out of our jobs. But this is now one place where the government is being pressured to draw a line because they gave the civilian air traffic control service called MNAV, Macedonian Navigation, to DUI. DUI appointed their own people as directors. And then there is a lot of corruption, such as money coming in to build a new building. They're diverting it to different places. To construction companies linked to DUI. They hired a DUI security company. But then they said, listen, these guys are earning 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 euros a month as air traffic controllers. And we can have our people hired as air traffic controllers. And the union of this company, and these are people who, unlike in another institution, like I worked in the MIA news agency, and the Macedonians had to keep quiet because you're very replaceable there. When the Albanians started having their expansion there in this institution. But here the air traffic controllers, they say, listen, I'll just quit my job. I'll be working in a much nicer city, nicer country for even more money tomorrow. Like, what you going to do to me? And they started protesting against the DUI takeover. They started insisting that DUI is trying to hire incompetent people. And they said, okay, we're going to go on strike. We will shut down the sky above Macedonia. And this is our pressure point. And on the day they were having a press conference, there are already, obviously, Albanians are working in this institution. DUI wanted to have more and wanted to have people from their own party. So some of the Albanians joined the protest, and a person who is a former economy minister, who is a former director of this institution, now just working there, who is currently head of DUI for Chire, which is a battleground part in Skopje where DUI is facing an important rebellion. So as they had a split in their party. So this guy, who obviously very important person in DUI, he comes with half a dozen people, some of them working there, some of them policemen, some of them security guards in this institution. They're waved through the DUI appointed company that secures the building, which is, you can't even walk in there. It's very serious stuff. We had military planes there, not anymore. They're rusting in Ukraine somewhere now. We have military transport planes from NATO coming and going.
Yeah, the airspace that they are responsible for has all kinds of both civilian and military aircraft at all hours of the day and night.
And they just walked in through several lines of defense, of perimeters of security, walked into the main control building. They got in front of the door of the control building. They said, bring us that guy, those Albanians who joined the protest, because they think if you're Albanian, you have to be DUI, and you can't be protesting against the DUI director. And they started shouting at them, dragging them, and eventually beat up one of them. We still haven't seen the camera footage, and ASDSM and DUI are trying to minimize the attack. The air traffic controllers are saying, no, it was actually pretty bad. We were directing planes and there was an actual fight.
Just outside our door.
Our door.
Wow.
So this was, they said, okay, now we are now starting serious protests. The government met, they removed one of the directors who is DUI appointed. They immediately appointed another person from DUI. So hours later, they figured that he's not a flight controller, which is in their internal rules, he has to be actual air traffic controller with years of experience because they want to be run by themselves, right?
But he has played Call of Duty.
Yeah. Or what's the
whatever the equivalent is.
Haven't played such games in a long time. So they removed him several hours later, appointed another one who is now both a DUI guy, an Albanian, and air traffic controller, and allegedly Ali Ahmeti's nephew.
He has a lot of nephews.
He sure has. One of them, did we mention that one of them was arrested before New Year? Drin Ahmeti, his brother's son, who was given the Soravia shopping center, 40% share or something, in a huge business office building in Skopje, one of the most modern ones recently built. Days after the government paid out the first tranche, hundreds of millions to Bechtel for the highway construction, a deal DUI negotiated, and days later an Albanian company buys the Soravia business center and gives 40% of it to Ahmeti's nephew. And this guy was arrested just before New Year, smuggling something in his jeep from Albania. And then the police said, no, it was just firecrackers, nothing serious. No drugs, no weapons.
No, of course not.
Just firecrackers, no big deal. And this was we're now waiting for this arrest. The police, so after the fight, before the fight, the police summoned the head of the union who is complaining about all this nepotism hires and other corruption. They summoned him for questioning. This is a pretty big deal when the police invites you to the police station. This used to be a very serious deal in communist
Invites,
times.
quote unquote. Yeah.
We call it, he was taken in, he was detained. It's more like summoned for questioning, but still...
It's taken like in Liam Neeson in the Albanian films?
It's not pleasant thing to be... Because he sent an email to the directors, to the DUI directors, which they found threatening. They have this incident. So the protest was announced after he was detained. This escalated things. We have the announcement for the protest. We have the fight the same day. The Albanian guy who was beaten up, the air traffic controller, he realizes what's happening, that he is now in the crosshairs of DUI. He refuses to go to the police to give a statement that he was attacked. He does not go to the doctors to have a medical report that he was beaten up. He tries to flee to Kosovo. He's arrested at the border with Kosovo.
The victim is arrested.
Yes.
Okay.
By DUI police, obviously. Summoned for questioning, just like the head of the air traffic control union. We don't know what happens next with him. Under all this outrage and outcry, they arrest Bekim Neziri, the DUI tough guy, former minister, former head of MNAF, head of their child district. They do the perp walk like with handcuffs, him and the other attackers. And then a DUI appointed judge says, there is no need for detention. You're free to go. Just don't leave Skopje. You're free to go to to work, actually, under these rules. So he can actually go back to the...
And pretend to direct planes in and off of the tarmac. Okay, right.
And like everybody was like, what the heck are you doing? And only today they detained some of them, house arrest, not actual arrest. So it's complete takeover of institutions, and most defeatist move for SDSM voters and the population here is when the prime minister, he tries to avoid talking about this. The interior minister went to the United States, so I'm not from around here.
Convenient.
Meeting some actual Trump people there, Congress people in the Macedonian caucus for some reason.
Worth monitoring.
Yeah, and Jim O'Brien, he's meeting Jim O'Brien, trying to secure the presidential nomination.
Right.
Spasovsky is in Washington, not talking about this disaster. The president, who is Pendarovsky, who is given hope and running again, he is making comments about this, but nobody cares what he says. And then the prime minister tries to avoid the public. Eventually he's found, he has to show up at some event. The public confronts him, the press confront him, like, what the hell is happening? Are you so cucked by DUI so you cannot even, arrest these people? And he pinned it all on the head of the air traffic control union. He said it was like a scuffle, something that could happen between family members, because so many family members were employed there, and he was accusing the head of the union, because the head of the union, a Macedonian, who was raising all hell about how the institution is run. His father worked there before, so he now works there, and he also had his brother hired. So again, nepotistic hires, also bad, obviously. The head of the union says, we passed all the exams, we went to all the foreign, we are paired with the Danish air traffic control, so they are the ones who are looking over our shoulders. We are actually competent, we did our homework. Okay, yes, my brother works there, my father did. The Albanians DUI was trying to hire, they wouldn't even take the general knowledge exam. They tried to avoid the exam. But the prime minister, he's so in pocket of DUI. His instinct is to protect DUI after this huge incident and to accuse again, nepotistically hired, but competent. We haven't had a plane crash in decades. Crowd who says that this is what DUI is doing in our FIF. There is DSM people, the union guys. It's not like Vamara there within his own party. Nikola Dimitrov is apparently friends with them, so he picked up their cause. So he's trying to make a cause out of it. So we have a situation where the prime minister is going to defend DUI at the expense of people who are broadly as DSM, like maybe not card carrying, but that general area, generally in his own party and.
Wow, that's a great explanation. And as you were going through that, which I think our listeners will appreciate, it occurred to me a couple of things. Number one, Al-Ahmeti nephews, nepotism. The root word of nepotism is nephew. The Latin, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have one nephew. He's a good kid, studying mechanical engineering at university. He's going to get a good job once he leaves. As his uncle, I don't need to engage in nepotism to help him. So, and he wouldn't want it anyway, because he's been raised rightly. He knows that, maybe not fully, but he will come to appreciate that work gives you meaning, and that if somebody just gives you a job, especially one you don't deserve, that really, you might take it, but you kind of feel dirty about it, I think. I think it's human nature to say, I have self-worth as an individual. You know, we're all made in the image of God. I have self-worth as an individual. I want to be able to prove myself by working and not having something given to me, especially something I'm not qualified for. And I do honestly believe that the majority of Macedonians of whatever ethnicity believe that. And I think I'll vote for the party, even though I can't vote for a party here. I'll vote for the party that says, you know what? We're going to create conditions in Macedonia that allow men and women to use their God-given talents and skills to create jobs, to create wealth, to create businesses. And we're not going to be a party that just hands out jobs left, right, and crooked, like some of our other parties here. That's the party I would vote for, and that's the party that I want to see. I want to see a party talk about that.
Yeah, but this is a 4,000 or 5,000 euros a month job.
That's true. That's true.
Although when you make a mistake there,
it's true. Then you have to live with that for life and beyond. So anyway, that was my digression that I came to while you were going through that whole thing.
Yeah, the instructors are saying if we hire them, we have them. We nickname these guys Maradona, these unqualified air traffic controllers, because 3 people have to guard him at any time so he doesn't do something stupid. You have to watch over him, like you had to watch over Diego Maradona when he would get the ball. Right? You had to have 3 people around him at any time, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. We've just digressed into a cultural reference that I completely forgot about. So that was when was he around?
Maradona.
Yeah.
Crap.
Is he still around?
No.
He's gone. Okay.
He joined the team upstairs.
He's playing for the big guy now. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. See. Okay. Yeah. Soccer, football, soccer. Not my, even though that's the only sport I played in high school. Anyway.
But you heard of him, right?
Oh yeah. Now that you gave me that reference.
Armando Maradona, right. The hand of God.
Is that what his nickname was?
Yeah, because he scored a goal with his hand.
That's illegal.
Yeah, but he was Maradona. So what you gonna do?
So it's legal. It's kind of, that fits in nicely with Ali Ahmeti. You're not supposed to do these things, but you do them anyway, and you get praised for it. So,
mano a Dios.
But going back then to the elections. So this incident, the most recent screw up in this current government, and one that has potential for serious consequences. Don't know if it's going to have any effect on the public in terms of where they're thinking of voting. You mentioned at the beginning that it's almost 2-1 in terms of the polling and things like that. But there's always a large number of people who say, don't know, won't answer, undecided, etc. And that's the key. In terms of number of seats, and then of course you mentioned the fact that Daniela and Skopje might form their own party, which that's just what Macedonia needs, is more political parties, right? So this is the frustrating thing that I feel is frustrating, the parliamentary system where you have all these kingmakers and little parties that can then, throw the balance of power and things like that. Whereas, we got a 2-party system in the States, and that's pretty much it. So Vomero, best case scenario, gets
55, I guess.
55 seats, okay.
Maybe 60 plus, but that's a tall order, because if the Albanian opposition is allowed to compete fairly in the 6th district, in the Albanian district, and they're teaming up with Albin Kurti from Kosovo, so they're practically replicating this divide between Rama and Kurti. Rama is the darling of the internationals, of the liberal world order. Kurti is being like a rebel. He's being shunned by the internationals. Rama is he practically brought SDSM and DUI into power in Macedonia, brought SDSM with DUI, with the Tirana platform of 2016-2017. Kurti is now teaming up with the Albanian opposition parties in Macedonia. They're using an anti-corruption message against DUI.
Kurti, it's worth remembering, folks, that Kurti is the prime minister of another quote-unquote country.
And so is Rama, and they're both very deeply involved in our here. So if they are allowed to compete fairly, they will lose to DUI, but not by that much. And this would reduce the margin if DUI and SDSM have a joint list. A fair competition in Albanian districts would mean that this list would lose to Vëmëra badly and would be more or less win slightly in the Albanian camp. And then Vëmëra wins handily.
Yeah.
If they're allowed to just stuff ballots in the Albanian districts, beat up the Albanian opposition observers, then they can really rack up points in the Albanian districts. They're even trying to have deprive the Albanian opposition of the seat in the State Electoral Commission, which belongs to them. They're trying to make up, invent Albanian opposition parties and give the seat to them instead of the large grouping of Albanian opposition. And then this guy would vote with SDSM and DUI to overturn any electoral protests if ballots are stuffed, if any shenanigans happen. And in this case, they can win most of the seats in the Albanian district, 6, and Albanian votes in other districts. Then they can narrow down the margin of defeat for SDSM against Vëmëra.
Right. But Vëmëra still has to form a coalition with some of these smaller parties.
They would prefer with the Albanian opposition parties, and or they would say, listen, well, they're grouped together. The BESA, the Alternative Party, the the alliance is with the government
right
now.
That's
and they're still thinking whether to leave the government, run with the government, run independently. Yeah. No, the third one is the splinter group from DUI.
Oh, right. Okay.
Who are fighting over this Chayre district and other places around Skopje.
Yeah.
So Vëmëra said we prefer these guys. We would take DUI if we have to, but provided that DUI gets rid of its worst people like
Ali Ahmeti
and Artan Grubi. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they would take.
Good luck with that.
They were hoping to split DUI in half.
Yeah.
They would take this option.
Yeah. Eventually, I think it's worth pointing out, Ali Ahmeti will be gone at some point. And, I was on with Janko and Yari Burik last night, and that'll be coming out at some point. But I mentioned something that we've talked about frequently on this podcast and I've written about, is that the ethnic Albanian parties in Macedonia are all cult of personality. So they revolve around a leader. Not to say that doesn't happen as much on the Macedonian side, but at least with the two parties, SDSM and Vëmëra, you've got long-established political parties that are rooted in history that, you can argue to what degree they still have an ideology, but they did and they do, whereas the Albanian parties are only built around people. So classic example, 22 years ago, it was DPA was the largest party, Mendu Thaçi. He died. Sorry, Arben Jaferi. He died, party fell apart. PDP, Emir Meri. He died, party fell apart. One day Ali Ahmeti will die. Party will at least split into multiple factions, if not go the way of other parties in here. Not necessarily so much with SDSM and Vëmëra, although, as it's worth pointing out, remember, not too long ago, PASOK was the largest party in Greece. Where are they today? Syriza is, the dominant on the left and Neo-Demokratia on the right.
PASOK kind of returned in the last elections.
Yeah.
They're not
trying to build up again.
Yeah, they're
point being that parties come and go, and so that's a lesson worth learning for everybody.
Yeah. Artan was making some interesting noise yesterday. He was invited by so the Dutch ambassador went to see Ali Ahmeti, and the Dutch after the election, and even before that, they had the Nationalist Party win. They will not be allowed to form a government, obviously, but still, and they became very skeptical to enlargement, and they are now putting all blame on us. And calling out Ahmeti for corruption, for influencing the court. A big issue is that Ahmeti is trying to pressure the Chief Justice of the Court, of the Supreme Court, Bisa Ademi, to reinstated the pardons against the VMRO officials, including Gruevski and Yalkov. Ahmeti is hoping that if they do this, they will have the biggest split in VMRO. They're doing this with Levica, they're trying to steal votes from VMRO. They're doing this with Maxim, with other people, fake parties, fake patriotic parties. But, if they can get Gruevski to support them, against Mickovsky to split the party. It's not clear that Gruevski has actually accepted this or that he's playing ball here, but something here is happening. The court says that they're under pressure. And that allegedly it's not even Izdisim doing this, it's more DUI that's pressuring the court. Ademi, the Chief Justice, is an Albanian, and they're pressuring her. And she had the US ambassador come to her assistance, meet with all the judges and then the ambassador said, stop doing this. Now, the Dutch ambassador met with Ahmeti, made a statement about this, accusing Ahmeti of corruption. This is the first time we've had the internationals, the diplomats, openly attack Ahmeti. Meet with him, and it's not all hugs and kisses, a love fest. It's suddenly, problematic. He's now a problem. The prime minister, again, so cucked to DUI, he came out and said, well, if the judge says that she is pressured, those who feel pressured, they should come out and say it. Don't go around with the ambassadors. At a time when people are being beaten up at their workplace, arrested, trying to flee the country, what, you want her to... we're not protecting her, she should stand up for herself and fight.
Right.
Dude, it's crazy. And Artan was on television yesterday, Artan Grubi, Ahmeti's deputy. And if you just delete the name from the news report, it's like something that I would say. He said he was pressed about the Dutch ambassador. He said, well, listen, what with their interference in the past in our rule of law, in our judiciary, remember when they supported Katica Janeva, the corrupt person with, caught with money in her bag, what are they now pretending that they're all of a sudden all clean and holy and they're for the rule of law? Why don't they stand up to the foreign countries pressuring Macedonia, like Bulgaria? Why they wouldn't take up the cause of Macedonia in the European Union? What else did he say? So it was literally something that I would say in this interview, trying to turn the tables against them, all valid points. But coming from Artan, it's very ironic that the Dutch ambassador is now, what is all this corruption all of a sudden in this country? I'm shocked that the Albanians, Artan Grubi, who worked for the Dutch embassy,
we created,
he's corrupt. And then that Artan would say, well, why are these internationals not supporting Macedonia, and they're all interfering in our domestic affairs? And you're literally the epitome, you're the product of Dutch embassy interference in Macedonian domestic affairs, and all of a sudden both of you are shocked that the other side is it's ridiculous.
Grubi he's not Frankenstein, because Frankenstein was the doctor. He's Frankenstein's monster.
Exactly.
The monster was actually never named in the book, but he is Frankenstein's monster. So, all right. Well, so taking a quick step back, looking at the timeline. Again, this is January 12, January 28, I believe. Dace steps down, and Talat Jaferi becomes prime minister, interim prime minister, I think. His first act as interim prime minister is to give a speech, which he will do in Albanian, of course. My prediction. It'll raise a ruckus, of course. He'll say, I have the right to. Technically, he does. But just because you have the right to do something in life doesn't mean you should do something in life. Anyway, that's more of a philosophical discussion. Elections would be, then technical government, VMRO is going to participate in the technical government, I see.
But will not vote for it because they say Talat and DUI in general are so corrupt. We're not voting for them, but they will submit candidates for interior minister, labor and welfare minister, deputy for agriculture, deputy for finance, positions that would help at least uncover abuse of institutions, if not prevent them in the elections, stuff like ballot stuffing and buying voters with public largesse.
And then elections would be 45. Is it 45 days before May 8 or?
No, it's
30 days.
2 weeks before.
Oh, is it? No, the election campaign
Okay,
begins.
yeah, I'm not.
Even though it had already begun.
begun.
It's always you Macedonians have learned well from us Americans, in that you are constantly campaigning. Elections never end. There's a lot of money to be made, so that's all you do. So congratulations.
Yeah. And then do we get a government? We might not get a government for a long time afterwards, maybe until the US elections.
Ooh, that's a long time for Talat to be prime minister.
Talat may be a prime minister for a while. We might have like a broad government, a de facto broad coalition of all the parties for a very long time, because, the Albanian, the opposition, even if Vëmëro wins handily and the Albanian opposition has the votes to put Vëmëro in power, they might be told to delay this, to wait it out, and until it's clearer what's happening with the Bechtel money, with the US elections.
That's 6 months.
It could be.
Yeah.
It happened before, when Gruevski was postponing, when SDSM was trying to avoid elections. In 2016, we had a technical government for a very long time.
That's right, yes. Yeah.
Eventually, SDSM were kicked out of that government, but in this case, Vëmëro could be left there for a while.
And then once you do form a government, let's just say that scenario, Vëmëro forms government, Skopje becomes prime minister, he's going to refuse to say, he's not going to use the N word. And then that's going to create a whole other round of issues and things like that. So, but in the meantime, I suppose if you want to look at it from the sweet meteor of death standpoint, in the meantime, there might be a constitutional crisis in the United States because of various issues we talked about at the beginning. New wars might erupt between China and Taiwan, etc. The war in the Middle East might expand.
Bosnia is acting up, although Bosnians are probably looking at us and saying, well, Macedonia is acting up.
Now's the time to strike. So chaos may envelop us in 2024.
We may have also interesting presidential candidates. So Vëmëro was hoping that Zaev would run somebody, probably Venko Filipče, split SDSM into two. We had Kocha and Yushev put on the blacklist, Zaev confident, which was probably a warning to Zaev not to try to run a presidential candidate, not to split the party. Probably Oliver Spasovski, the interior minister, tries to run for president. He is running.
Well, that's why he's in Washington now, to try and get some endorsements of some sort.
It's going
at least pictures.
Very badly for him on the home front. He is, with all the incidents, attacks, beatings, shootings. The recent one is they're forcing us to change our passports, even though I timed my passport. I actually picked up a new passport a little sooner, so it's still with the Republic of Macedonia. And then they delayed for a long time the introduction of the N-word in the passports, in the documents. But now the government says, no, the Greeks insist that we have to do this now, immediately, by February. Conveniently, this means they say we want to nullify all the identity cards and passports without the N-word ahead of the elections. So maybe a bunch of people won't be able to vote.
Clever.
And this caused a huge line in... So practically you cannot book a passport appointment to change the passport. So they set up like a new office where you can come in without an appointment, but with so many people emigrating, working abroad, whatever, it's a torturous affair. You go there at 5, 6 in the morning at this cold to try to get in line, often with children, because you have to have a passport for your child. Cutting in lines, they see people from the government walking ahead, like stuff like that. And then they shut the doors before you, while you're waiting, like after hours of waiting, incidents, fights all the time. This is a huge problem for Spasovski. It's a huge problem for the government. Kovacevsky is asked, okay, can't you have like more people working on this? They're not competent to organize.
It's not like your public sector is small.
Yeah. Then he says, we will ask the Greeks if they will allow us to postpone the deadline because it's cold in Skopje and people are waiting in lines. Like decades before, when we had to wait in line for the Greek embassy to give us a passport.
I remember that.
Beach,
it wasn't even a passport, it was a stamp on a piece of paper.
Hugely humiliating experience. There were jokes, there were like SNL-style show that would do skits on this. And now we're doing this in our own country again. The Greeks, they say the Greeks are demanding that we do this, although the Greeks are not implementing their end of this treaty. And
why should they?
And a part of the treaty is that we implement this after we begin EU accession talks, as we close chapters. So this has not happened, obviously. So the government is looking so feckless, so, in the pocket of Albanians, in the pocket of the internationals, in the pocket of the Greeks. Again, we've kind of forgot about all the pressures from the Greeks, and now we are being reminded of this. So they're really, people are saying that Kovačevski, he obviously is not hoping to remain prime minister.
He's looking forward to stepping down.
Yeah. And then Šekerinska is up. I guess she hopes that people forgot about her. And her husband was appointed. I didn't
until you mentioned her name.
Yeah. Her husband was appointed in the ceremonial role for the Christmas Eve celebration in Skopje. So she had her daughter, in a horse-drawn carriage with the oak trees, which are the symbol. Like, we are now the godfathers of Christmas this year. Look, so
they got the coin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they usually have a businessman do this, and everybody was outraged. Like, we haven't forgotten about you. You B word, C word. And then her cousin,
rhymes with which,
and her cousin, who is one of these far left radical crazies, Nikola Numovsky, he was in the city of Skopje like a manager in the cheerleague of this faction of the party. He thinks it's a good time that just as his cousin is trying to relaunch her career ahead of the presidential elections, he posted one of these outrageous comments about the church in Macedonia, like, this is when children go trick-or-treating from door to door, taking money before Christmas and candy and stuff, and they sing Christmas songs. And he said these F-word Koleda kids coming to your doors. This would be a good name for a band, something like that. He wanted to do like an atheist, far left joke, just as this is happening. So VMR is not covering itself in glory either. They're considering a little-known university law professor as presidential candidate, Aca Spasenovsky. Wouldn't really raise pulses or excite people. Or Gordana Siljanovska, who lost the last time. We're not sure who would be if they have another more red-blooded candidate for the elections, but
are there no leaders?
I think their thinking was they wanted to not lose the elections, but have a withdrawn role in the presidential elections, hoping to encourage Zaev to run. Maybe even have Zaev make it into the second round. Maybe even split the VMRO vote between their candidate. Maybe even have their candidate lose, like in Karpoš. Elections, and then have two SDSM candidates in the second round, generating a big split in SDSM. Maybe this was even their hope, that Zaev would run Venko Filipče, the healthcare minister, and that SDSM would run Spasovsky, Šekerinska, Pendarovsky, and just split the party, thinking maybe that this would help them more in the general if SDSM are fighting each other than if VMRO wins the general elections, the first round of the presidential elections.
Right.
Maybe even, I don't know, they don't really have a proper candidate you could get excited about.
That is unfortunate, because I think there are people out there who would make excellent candidates. There are leaders. Maybe they need a little coaxing to put themselves out there in the public square, because there's a lot of pressure on not only them but their families. But it's a missed opportunity if they don't. Yeah,
if they lose the first round, with enough Albanians. So the thing is that if the Albanian opposition runs a candidate, and they're thinking about Rufi Osmani, the former mayor of Gostivar, who was put in prison.
He's still around.
Yeah.
Wow.
Put in prison for displaying the Albanian flag, the big first major Albanian nationalist incident.
Put in prison by a citizen.
Of course, Frčkovski. And so if he is the candidate, then SDSM is hoping that DUI does not have their own presidential candidate, just supports their guy by default, Spasovsky, Šekerinska, Pendarovsky, whoever. If the Albanian opposition has a candidate, then DUI will be in a difficult position to say, listen, we will. Albanians will, even our voters, Albanians who are more nationalistic, will vote for the Albanian opposition candidate, and we'll have the Albanian opposition show up with 150,000 votes in the first round of the elections, right? And this will be a huge wind in their sails for the general elections. So DUI says if they have a candidate, we may have to have a candidate and beat them. Show that we are stronger.
Beat them at the polls, not literally.
Or literally. And then if this happens, then SDSM will have their candidate running solo against Vimera and will be destroyed. SDSM are hoping that all this doesn't happen, that DUI supports them in the first round, maybe even win against a bloodless Vimera candidate, and this gives them wind in their sails for the second round of presidential elections, and of course, most importantly, for the general election.
Right. Wow. That's a full wrap. That's a good analysis of what's going on, the elections, what to expect, things like that.
And then expect the unexpected, of course.
Well, yes, especially this year. So with everything that's going on in the world.
I don't have any flights planned. You have one.
One out of Skopje, yes. Yeah. So
after that, you'll be safe. Maybe can you switch it to Sofia or Solun or Pristina? Maybe.
No. Hopefully, getting the plane off the ground is easier than putting the plane on the ground.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
In general, so
so they hopefully they clear all the other planes from your path.
Exactly, out of the path. So no, and all joking aside, we do hope that nothing serious happens with that whole thing, and that they get it resolved, and that they put
after they had one bus crash, another bus crash, both covered up. First one blamed on the Macedonian driver. The second one, they were supposed to arrest Spasovski, the interior minister, over the second one because he didn't. Over the first one because he didn't close down the garage which was doing the inspection of the bus. So after these two things were covered up, after the Tetovo hospital fire was covered up, now resurfacing when Filipče said that he may run for president to be used against him, not because of actual reasons. We had the Mizar shopping center fire. Again, nobody was to blame for this.
Not to mention all the shootings that occurred with regularity in Eastgate Mall and other places around Skopje. So
it's not such a long leap that they will crash a plane eventually during competence and corruption.
Yeah, hopefully not. So, well, let's leave it at that. That's a good wrap. Ended on a depressing note, sort of. But I think we ended on a positive note last time, so we have to space these things out. I can't have too much depression and too much happiness. God forbid. But I think, again, this is the 12th of January, so maybe we'll revisit this in a couple of weeks as we get closer to the transition and take it from there.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Hey, great seeing you.
You too, buddy.
Here in Macedonia.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
Yes. Next time in Tucson, maybe.
Come on over. You're welcome anytime.
True, the border is open, right? I can just...
you just go down to fly into Mexico City, just walk over. Come over to the border in Lukeville, Arizona.
Who they ask for in Tijuana?
Juan.
He would know that.
Talk to you again soon.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
You too.